You know, I used to think scary stories were just that, stories. My little brother James used to eat that stuff up when we were kids. He'd sit up late watching those ghost hunting shows or reading about cryptids on the internet. Me? I never cared much for it. Then I saw one. And now I don't sleep so well. This happened last winter. Me, my cousin David, my buddy Kyle from the army, and his girlfriend Sophie decided to go camping in Wisconsin. I know, camping in winter sounds dumb as hell, but the forecast said it'd be clear skies and sunny, and we figured we'd have the woods to ourselves. We were right about that. No one else was out there. No one alive, anyway. We set up camp by a frozen lake. It was damn near silent. Not even birds, which should have been my first clue that something was off. As we sat around the fire that night, I remembered this old TV show James used to watch about folklore and legends. One episode was about skinwalkers, these things from Navajo legend that could steal a person's shape. Supposedly, they could mimic voices and even faces, but there was always something wrong with them, something off. I never took it seriously until I heard the whispering. At first, I thought it was just the wind through the trees. Then I noticed it had a rhythm, like speech, low, choppy words, almost like someone struggling to talk. Sophie heard it too. She nudged Kyle. "Do you hear that?" Kyle turned his head, listening. His face went pale. "Yeah." David laughed. "Probably just an echo. The woods do that." I wasn't so sure. Then came the knocking. A slow, deliberate thud, thud, thud. Something hitting a tree trunk. Not woodpecker fast, not random, it was paced, like someone trying to get attention. David clicked on his flashlight, shining it onto the trees. "Hello?" I wanted to tell him to shut the hell up, but the sound had stopped. The woods swallowed the light, nothing but empty branches and snow. But something had been there, and it wasn't gone. That night, I barely slept. The fire burned low, casting these long twisted shadows against the trees. Every so often, I'd hear shuffling, but every time I sat up, it was quiet again. Morning came, and we all tried to shake it off. Maybe we'd just psyched ourselves out. We packed up quick, eager to get moving. We never got the chance. Sophia was the first to see it. She'd walked a little ahead of us, looking for a good place to take some photos. She froze, staring at something past the trees. "Kyle," she said, her voice tight. "What the F was that?" We turned, and I swear to God, my heart nearly stopped. There was a man standing there. At least it looked like a man. Tall, but too tall. His limbs were long, his skin pale and stretched too tight over his face. He didn't move, he just stood there, watching us, his eyes black pits locked onto Sophie. Then he smiled. It was wrong, too wide and too sharp, like his mouth wasn't built to do it, but he was forcing it anyway. Kyle grabbed Sophie's arm. "Back to camp, now." Then the thing tilted its head, and in Kyle's exact voice it said, "Back to camp, now." Sophie screamed. I pulled my pistol, my hands were shaking, but I knew one thing. That thing wasn't human. David yanked out his hunting knife. "What the hell? What the hell?" Then it moved. 1 second it was standing there, the next it was closer. Not running, not stepping, just there. I fired. The shot echoed through the trees. It didn't even flinch. Then it laughed. Not a real laugh, more like a sick, choking mockery of one. It sounded like all of us at once, overlapping voices echoing back at us. That's when we ran. We tore through the woods, branches ripping at our faces, the cold burning our lungs. Behind us, We could hear it following, not running, just moving. Fast. Too fast. The sun was still shining, but somehow the trees felt darker. The shadows stretched too far, like they were reaching for us. Then Kyle tripped. Sophie screamed. I turned, raising my gun, and saw another Kyle standing over him. Not the real one. Its limbs were wrong, bending backwards, its head twisted too far to the side. It grinned, and in Kyle's voice it said, "Help me." The real Kyle scrambled back, horror on his face. "That's not me, that's not me." David lunged with his knife, slashing at it. The thing grabbed his wrist, then it ripped his throat out. I don't remember running. I don't remember grabbing Kyle and Sophie and dragging them toward the car. I don't even remember how we found the road. All I remember is the screaming, not ours, David's, echoing through the woods, laughing, repeating our voices. Even as we slammed the doors, even as I floored it down the icy road, that thing's voice chased us, mimicking, mocking, laughing. We never went back. We never spoke about it again. The cops found David's body weeks later, torn to pieces. They blamed wolves. But I saw it. It wasn't wolves. It wasn't anything natural. And sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I still hear it. Help me, in my own voice. Have you ever had one of those nights that just stains your memory? I don't mean bad nights, like fights with your girl or losing your job. I mean nights that change you, nights that dig into your bones and never let it go. I had one of those nights. It happened last summer in Wisconsin. Me and 3 friends, Mark, Daniel and Sarah, decided to go on a road trip. Nothing fancy, just a weekend drive through some small towns, hitting up local diners, cheap motels, just seeing America the way it's meant to be seen. It was raining when we got there. Not a storm, not even heavy rain, just drizzle that made everything look dim, like the sun was struggling to break through the clouds but couldn't. The air was thick, humid as hell, and the roads were damn near empty. We should have taken that as a sign, but we didn't. We were cutting through a stretch of road surrounded by thick woods on both sides when Mark saw something. He was driving and suddenly he slammed on the brakes. Did you see that? Daniel, sitting in front, groaned. What now? There was... Mark squinted out the windshield. I swear to God, something just ran across the road. I leaned forward from the back seat, eyes scanning the tree line. I saw nothing. Sarah shifted uncomfortably next to me. Like a deer? Mark shook his head. No, it was big. Daniel sighed. Dude, it's probably just a bear. Relax. But Mark didn't relax. His knuckles stayed white on the wheel as he slowly started driving again. And that's when I realized the woods felt wrong. They were too quiet, no birds, no insects, just the sound of rain hitting the roof, and the feeling that something was watching us. A few miles down, we found an old rest stop, just a couple of picnic tables and a wooden shelter. There was a sign pointing toward a hiking trail leading into the woods. We pulled over, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Mark's hands were shaking. I need a minute, man. We all stepped out, stretching our legs, the damp air clinging to our skin. I walked to the edge of the trail, staring into the trees. Something about the woods felt off, like they were deeper than they should have been. Like if you stepped in, you might never come out. Sarah lit a cigarette, exhaling slowly. This place is creepy as hell. Daniel smirked. Come on guys, it's just the rain. Everything feels eerie when it's raining. I wasn't so sure, because at that moment I could feel it. Something was watching us. something was hiding in the trees, and it wasn't a bear. That night we camped. We hadn't planned to, but we'd been driving all day and Mark was too rattled to keep going. There was a small clearing near the rest stop, so we set up a fire, pulled out some snacks and tried to relax. But none of us felt right. Every so often, I'd catch Sarah glancing over her shoulder. Mark kept rubbing his hands like they were cold, even though the air was thick and hot. And then there was Daniel. Normally the loudest in the group, he had barely spoken since we got here. He just stared into the woods, eyes narrowed like he was waiting for something. And then we heard it, a sound coming from the trees, a low clicking noise, like two stones tapping together. Click, click, click. Mark whispered, "What the hell is that?" The fire crackled, the rain drizzled. Click, click, click. Closer this time. Sarah grabbed my arm. "It's just an animal, right?" No, it wasn't, because the sound was circling us. We didn't sleep. None of us said it, but we all knew something was out there. We stayed close to the fire, gripping whatever we had that could be used as weapon, a pocket knife, a tire iron, even a damn tent pole. Nothing happened. Nothing showed itself. Not yet. By morning, we were done. We packed up, ready to get the hell out of here. We were moving fast, barely talking, just focused on leaving. And then Sarah screamed. We turned, and I swear to God my stomach dropped. There was a face in the trees. Not human or animal, just something wrong. Its skin was pale and stretched too tight. Its eyes were just holes, deep and black, like the sockets went on forever. And then it moved. No sound, no footsteps. Just a sudden shift, like reality itself had glitched and put it closer to us. We ran. Mark gunned the car, dirt and rain flying as we tore down the road, but it was faster. I looked back. I wish I hadn't, because I saw it rip Daniel away. 1 second he was running behind us, the next he was gone. The thing didn't make a sound, it didn't roar or growl, it just took him, like he had never been there at all. We made it to the main road, flying down the highway, silent. No one spoke, no one cried. There was nothing to say, nothing to do, because we all knew the truth. Daniel was gone, and whatever took him was still out there, waiting, watching, listening. Click, click, click. Have you ever had a moment where something deep in your bones tells you to run? Not just fear, primal fear, the kind that hits you before you even understand why. I had that feeling once, and it nearly got me killed. It was last summer. Me and two of my buddies, Ethan and Cole, had this plan to spend a long weekend at a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. A little getaway from city life, you know. Just 3 guys, some beers, and my dog Max, a big dumb golden retriever who loved the woods. Now, I'm from San Francisco. Grew up in a tiny apartment with my folks and 2 sisters. So being out in the middle of nowhere, that was new for me. But Ethan and Cole had done camping trips before, and they swore this place was perfect. We got there in late afternoon. Storm clouds were rolling in, thick, dark, swallowing the sky. The air smelled like wet earth and something else. Something I couldn't place. The cabin was small, 1 floor, an old stone fireplace, and just enough room for 3 guys to crash. No Wi-Fi, barely any phone signal, which, looking back, was a bad sign. The first night we were sitting around drinking when Cole started talking about skinwalkers. "You ever hear about those things?" he asked, leaning forward. Ethan laughed. "Oh great, here we go." But I was interested. I mean, I've heard stories from old camping forums and stuff, Some people say they're real, but it's all just superstition, right? Cole shook his head. Dude, my uncle swears he saw one back in Arizona. Said it was following him, pretending to be a coyote. Then, right before he got to his truck, it stood up, like a person. The wind howled outside, shaking the old windows. Max, who had been dozing by the fireplace, suddenly lifted his head. His ears were stiff, nose twitching. Ethan frowned. What's wrong with him? Then, from the tree line, we heard it. A low whistle, the kind you used to call a dog. Max's tail dropped between his legs. He growled. And that's when I felt it. That deep, gut-wrenching feeling. We weren't alone. Ethan grabbed a flashlight, aimed it at the trees. Probably just some hiker messing with us. But there was no one there. No movement. Just the trees swaying in the wind. Then, snap! A branch broke. Not like a twig underfoot, like something heavy had just shifted in the darkness. Max whimpered, pressed himself against my leg, and then came the voice. Max, come here, boy. It was my voice, coming from the woods. My heart stopped. Ethan swore under his breath. What the hell was that? We backed up toward the cabin, slow, careful. The rain was starting, the wind pushing through the trees, but even through all of that, I could feel it watching us. Cole was shaking his head. We should go now. But we didn't, and we should have, because that was just the beginning. That night, the storm hit hard. Rain hammered the roof, thunder shook the ground, the fire flickered in the heart, throwing shadows across the walls, and something moved outside. Max heard it first. He was sitting by the door, ears pinned back, growling. I'd never heard him growl like that before. Ethan checked the window. I don't see anything. Cole grabbed the rifle we'd brought. Just a simple hunting gun, nothing special. But in that moment, it felt like the most valuable thing in the world. Then, thud, something hit the wall hard. Max yelped and ran behind the couch. Cole aimed the rifle at the door. If that's a bear, I swear to God. But we all knew that wasn't a bear. Ethan was pale. What if it's a... Then we heard it again. Max, come here, boy. Only this time, it was Ethan's voice, coming from the woods. I thought I was going to be sick. Shut the door, I whispered. Lock it. Cole did. We pushed the couch against it, anything to block it out. But then, the whistling started again, and something scratched the window. Long, slow, deliberate. And then came the knocking. Not at the door, at the window. 4 loud knocks. I couldn't breathe. Cole was gripping the gun so tight his knuckles were white. Ethan had a knife in his hand. None of us spoke, none of us moved. We just listened. To the rain, to the storm, to whatever was outside waiting for us. And then the lights went out. I don't remember much after that, just panic. Cole fired the gun. The sound was deafening, but I don't think he hit anything. Max was barking like crazy, snapping at the air. And then the door. The door was gone. Not broken, just gone, like it had never been there. And outside, in the storm, I saw it. Tall and wrong. Too many joints in the arms. Too long moving, like a puppet with its string cut. It didn't have a face, not really, just this stretched, twisted thing that looked like it was trying to be human but didn't quite know how. And then it took Ethan. 1 second he was there, the next he was just gone, dragged into the dark. His scream barely lasted a second. Cole and I ran. No plan, no direction. Just ran. Max was right behind us, panting, terrified. We didn't stop. We didn't look back. We ran until we hit the road, until we found another cabin with lights still on. We pounded on the door, screaming for help, and by the time we turned around, the woods were silent. Ethan was gone. No tracks. Nobody. Like he had never been there at all. The cops didn't believe us. They searched, found nothing. They said Ethan must have gotten lost, that the storm probably washed away his trail. But we knew. We knew. And before we left, I swear I heard it again. A low, almost playful, a whistle. And a voice, Ethan's voice, whispering from the tree line. "Max, come here, boy."